Welcome, 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 everybody. So excited. We are having, I think it's our 35th Music Monday through Music Columbus, which is incredible. And tonight may be the best one. In fact, I'm super excited about the panel that we have, the discussions that we're going to have. Super thankful that everybody's on. I'm also thankful that we decided to do this virtual since it's 20 degrees outside in Columbus. So, with that, I'm going to kick it off by sending it over to Amy Holohan, our Deputy Director at Music Columbus.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tom. Tom is our interim executive director that's been with us since the very beginning. So he's been to almost probably all 35 of these Music Mondays. But yeah, we're excited to host this one tonight. We've got some amazing experts with us. I just want to chime in and say, we do these events every other month, and we're working on our schedule for 2026. So I encourage you to sign up for our Music Columbus newsletter. If you are not already signed up, go to our website, musiccolumbus.com, and follow us on all social media at Music Columbus because we post all the time. And we try to post not only about our own programming that you might be interested in, but other events and shows happening all around Columbus. So be sure to give us a follow. Come to our next Music Mondays. We do them sometimes virtually, sometimes in person, and there is always something to learn, always people to meet, and I hope that you get a lot out of this one in particular. And then check out our other programs. We have the Unheard Showcases if you're looking to get on stage and play some music and get some photographs, video content to be able to go out and book more gigs. We have our incubator program, which is a 5-month long, really intensive, almost boot camp to really get yourself in gear and elevate your music and elevate your business of music so that you can take your creativity to the next level. And then we have an internship program called Earn as You Learn that is awesome if you're looking to get into more of the business side of things, working in venues, working with recording studios, working with a lot of other amazing, amazing mentors throughout the city that have been in music business for a long time. So as I said, check us out, musiccolumbus.com. Give us a follow on social media. And I hope that you learn a lot tonight and ask lots of questions. So as our guests are speaking, our panelists, be sure to jot down things and come ready to find out all you can about how to get your next release out there and heard by as many people as possible. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to our moderator for the evening, Joe O'Riordan.
Thank you, Amy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is actually my first time moderating one of these Music Mondays, but feel pretty honored to be at the 35th installments. Excited to kick off today's Music Monday workshop, Release Strategies and Promotions, presented by Music Columbus. We're excited to bring you a conversation focused on smart release planning, sonic identity, and effective promotion. We're joined by an incredible group of panelists who bring expertise from across the music industry and across the country. Starting off with Bobby Boushay here, Cleveland DJ. Spent the last decade building a standout career as a high-energy genre blending DJ. You might have seen him at the House of Blues, the Agora, Quicken Loans, EST Fest, and more. He's been featured on Cleveland's Real 106.1, earned numerous DJ accolades, and has shared the stage with artists like Marshmello, Lil Jon, Rez, Vince Staples, Lil Uzi Vert, and St. John. While also partnering with major brands like Corona, Monster Energy, iHeartRadio, Red Bull, and ESPN. Let's give a little hat tip to Bobby here. Good
Yeah,
guy.
what's up? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Good to be on the panel together. Next, we have Tamara Simons, who is a publicity manager at Network Music Group. I believe joining us from LA. She brought the Spice Girls with her, which is much appreciated. Tamara's love for music began early at her first Backstreet Boys concert at 8 years old. Growing up in LA, she immersed herself in the music world, attending Coachella, working at the Hollywood Bowl, and eventually earning a degree in music industry studies from CSUN, which is Cal State Northridge, I believe. She began her career at Big Hassle Media, working with Vivo, Bonnaroo, the Lumineers, the Black Crows, and more. She later joined Network's publicity team, where she now serves as publicity manager. And outside of work, she's a dedicated Lakers fan. I should have read that sooner. We could have been just talking about the Lakers the whole time. And a musician herself, playing in two bands, Goon and Slowpoke. I've heard Goon. I haven't heard Slowpoke, but Goon is awesome. So hi to Tamara. Tamara like camera, if anybody needs to address. And then last but not least is Jonathan Garcia, a Grammy-winning mixing engineer and founder of Dealer Made Music. Jonathan is an immersive engineer specializing in stereo and Dolby Atmos mixing and mastering. His work includes artists such as Alicia Keys, someone named Taylor Swift, BTS, Pusha T, Rema, and Bazzi, with mixes topping Apple Music's hip hop charts. He's earned Grammy recognition for his contributions to Alicia Keys' Hell's Kitchen and Dan Pugak's big band's Little Fears. He is known for creating a safe and collaborative studio environment and approaches every project, indie or major, with the belief that it could be the next hit. Welcome, Jonathan. Thank you to our esteemed panelists.
Awesome for being here. Shouts to the 35th.
The 35th. The 35th. Just a couple quick housekeeping notes. The workshop is being recorded and we will share the replay afterwards. So don't say anything too crazy. On that note, let's try to keep the chat respectful and constructive. We are in a community space and representing Music Columbus. And we will have a dedicated Q&A at the end. So please drop any questions or anything you feel pertinent into the chat. Shall we? Any questions? Good to go? Everybody unmuted? Okay. Well, let's just get right into it. Obviously, we are talking about release strategies and promotion. So I think a good place to start would just be kind of before the release. We are prepping a project, prepping an album, prepping an EP, maybe prepping a single. What are we doing before we release? Do you want me to pick who starts? Do you guys just want to jump in?
You got to start with the music, right?
Jonathan, get us started before the release.
Yeah. Well, it always starts with like an idea. The artist, it's all up to the artist or like the creative, right? And then they either curate the music themselves, right? And start building the team. And you go through all those trials and errors like of the song, the idea, fleshing it out. And then finally, like after the production, the recording, the mixing, and the mastering, now it's time to, present it to the world. But there's just like that just sounds like really easy, but there's just so much into that process, as we all know, right?
So I think we're all open to as detailed or as detail oriented as you want to get. Like, what if kind of? I think we should try to make it clear that we maybe have indie artists and we maybe have major label artists that are looking for information. Like, what, Jonathan? You seem to primarily work with larger artists, but do you have any recommendations or advice?
Yeah, no, I work with every kind of artist, every level, and especially like anybody that walks through the studio doors, everybody gets the same type of respect and treatment. Nobody is different. The music is what speaks. Um, and with that being said, like, at least like when I'm sitting in the chair and I have a session, I'm getting to know an artist, independent or a major. Um, we just start getting to know each other, and the idea is like, okay, what kind of mood are we in, right? What kind of music are we trying to create? And we start off with like, if it's hip hop, usually like they'll have their own beats, or like they'll have like maybe like 100 beats that we just go through, and we just go through like a bunch of different ideas. And at the end, like towards the end of the session, we'll be like, okay, like let's listen to all the songs or all the ideas that we've made, and see which one we're gonna keep moving forward with. Um, there's also been like the TikTok thing where I've kind of seen it more frequently. I'm not sure if, yeah, Bobby, maybe you've been introduced to this kind of method where people are just making like 30-second tracks. Yeah, and it's just like, all right, we're gonna make like 130-second tracks, and we're gonna just like upload these to TikTok or like Instagram, and see whichever one's getting the most traction, and we'll start building off of that to actually flesh out a song.
Yeah, I think even because that's kind of where my head was at in terms of the point I was going to make, what is your end goal, with whatever your release is, whether it's a single, whether it's an album, what can you strive towards to get it where you want it, maybe set some goals in terms of that. So to Jonathan's point, I feel like what you've seen over the last couple of years is everybody just making music for TikTok. They're making the shorter songs that are a minute 30 or less and just quick stuff to where then maybe I think we could maybe all agree that it doesn't have as much staying power. It's kind of here and gone. And especially being a DJ too, it's made it difficult to even play new music. And especially with something like TikTok, because people want just that little clip that they hear online, and then that's it. Then they're kind of done with the song. But all that being said, I think, you should set kind of a goal with the release. Like, okay, with this song, gives me this feeling, it gives me this kind of whatever you want to call it. So maybe, I want to look into maybe getting it placed into commercials or stuff like that. So kind of set like an end goal of what you want with the release rather than just like, all right, here's a new song. I need to put something out. Let me just put it out there and then that's it, because then it's just into the void. So I would say curate more of a plan with the release, set that goal of like an ideal end result that you would like with it. And obviously anything can happen once it's out there, but at least if you set some parameters of what you would like to see, it gives you something else to work towards and where to push it and how to push it more, I would say.
Yeah, I would also say it probably matters on like what level you're already at. So if you're a DJ and you've already had some like previous experience, you could base it on that. And like if you want to set like a new tone for like your next release, or if you're a band or an artist, and let's say this is your first release, like, you would have to take a look and be like, well, do I have socials? Like, am I on socials? Um, have I already been talking about music on my personal Instagram account if I already have one? Then there's also, let's say I want to talk about like go to streaming platforms. Then you have to wonder like where should you take it for it to be distributed? There's like CD Baby, and then there's TuneCore, and there's all these other places, which then adds into another layer of like where do you want the accessibility to be? And that is also another thing we run into where it's like, do you want to kind of be a bit more like low key about it and try to make money that you can go to Bandcamp? Or do you want it to be fully on every platform so everyone can have access to it, which would be like Tidal, Spotify, of course, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music. And I think from there, you can then decide kind of like, okay, well, my previous singles that I've released in the past few years they were able to be, let's say you were on Spotify and you have access to essentially see what cities and what countries you've already been gaining popularity in. So you can gear it towards, I want more people in Canada to listen to my music. So if you want to add that in, then you can seek out strictly Canadian publications. Or you can follow the same thing with, let's say, London or the United States, but there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And I think it kind of starts with what are your expectations and what is like a step-by-step goal that you can do and what is like your ultimate end goal. But I try to approach everything with a step-by-step and like starting with what is absolutely realistic versus what is not realistic. Why isn't it realistic? And how do we make it realistic?
So I guess then kind of moving into preparation from the artists themselves. How can they be, I know you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but how can artists who maybe they don't have label backing, maybe they do have label backing, maybe they have hired a publicist, maybe they are just completely doing it on their own. What are kind of the like artistic and technical preparations that bands or artists or maybe even an indie manager what are kind of some of the things they can do aside from just flooding TikTok or and maybe that is just the best approach right now.
I mean, I think I'm coming from a much more like indie rock area. So I feel like if I'm coming from an indie rock area and I see everyone's on TikTok, but I also want to play shows, I would probably start regionally. And I would see what other artists in my area are playing, where are they playing, who are they playing with, and how they started to gain popularity. And I would probably just kind of like look at the trends. And I'd want to see like how did they get this? Okay, it seems like this track really took off. Like what was it about this track? And kind of just like analyze different things within my area first because I think if you immediately go with worldwide, you're going to kind of already shoot yourself in the foot because you're thinking way too big versus that step-by-step process. And breaking into your local scene, I think is the best way to network. And that's kind of how you get to the next step because you need to meet people and you need to network in the process when you're releasing music. And that also can be done not just in person, but over social media, which is when you start connecting with other like-minded people within your community, which starts, I would say, right wherever you are sitting right now.
Yeah. Also to add into that, I would say another aspect of it too would be just I think a big thing that a lot of people forget about is, try to get your imaging right of, in terms of attempting to get some type of professional photos of yourself, gather as much content of yourself if you are already doing shows and everything like that to help if you're then trying to get booked for more shows or anything like that, have all of that prepared and ready to go. Because I think a lot of people don't have it prepped and ready, and then when they're finally asked for it, they kind of scramble because they don't. So just the little steps of like press photos, as much content together as possible, to just showcase and sell yourself. Another thing um, to build off the previous point would be look at some of your inspirations of other bands or artists that you like and not necessarily copy what they're doing, but see what they're doing, see what works for them, whether it's how maybe they originally started putting stuff out or how they connected with people. And then just kind of implement it in the best ways into your own stuff. Because obviously, if it worked for them, some aspects of it could work for you. Just do what makes sense for you and remains authentic. But, you can always learn from the other people around you, whether they're big name artists now or still other people that are like currently on the rise.
A mood board, if you will. Um,
Yeah.
Jonathan, this is maybe more for you to answer, given your kind of recording background. Um, you talked about artists coming in and maybe having 130-second snippets or things like that. How when you have been booked to work with an artist, do you prefer a band or artist to come to you ready to go? What about sitting in the studio, fleshing out ideas? Like, what do you find to be the more prepared situation? Maybe not prepared, but what's the more ideal situation when kind of prepping an album? I know when I grew up playing music, it was like by the time you get in the studio, you better be ready to go
Yeah.
and fully
No.
pre-produced because you don't want to waste the engineer's time, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think well to that it's like not so waste the engineer's time, but I think people had budgets, and back in the day like you to be in a studio like you had to be at a certain level like extremely well practiced because the rates are like a little more inaccessible than they are today. Um, Now I think it's the luxury of recording today is that everybody can record it from anywhere, and you don't have to be like a professional, and you have like a bunch of hits being made off of like some AirPod headphones, like with a little cable, and that's kind of just the reality of our industry, and that's to like it's not Adele, she's not recording like that, but you know we have like the underground shakers like the net spends of the world, and that's just something that we can't limit ourselves to right now just for like the recording. But whenever it comes to like, okay, we have an album that we need to do, or the goal is to like, hey, I've got like this EP that needs to be turned in because there's like somebody like pressing me, like I have a label or like my management then it's kind of like a different story because it's just like, okay, we can invest like a lot of time and create it from scratch, or like it just depends on like the point the artist is in their career, you know? Because I've been uh I've been like in the studio for hundreds of hours, like making like from the ground up, projects with these artists, and going through twists and turns of like, okay, maybe we need to be like rock on now. We need to go back to like an EDM kind of vibe. And it's just like, being like along with that journey to like really find the art with them and just like help them get across the finish line. So just as an engineer, my position isn't just to like, all right, I'm capturing, like I'm just recording or like doing the tracking, but it's just like I'm here to help guide you to get your art out into the world. That's my job. I'm just like here to help you express yourself. Um,
Sorry.
I, I hope, but yeah, if you're, but I also develop artists. Like I'm developing a few artists right now, and they're indie from like a bunch of different levels. And just like touching on back on the first thing, I think the mentality is like one of the first steps that an artist needs to like come to, or like a person that's going to be a create, like, in this industry has to have like the mentality of like, okay, this is like a business. Because like what's the goal of like stepping into in this industry? I always say it's the magic industry because the people outside of it don't really know what's going on and like the work that we have to put in to like get to the levels that we're at, or like that you're the echelons that you want to be at. The music videos are like selling out these shows. Like there's a lot of like groundwork that you have to put in. um a few years like before 2020, I was fortunate enough to have this little company, Dealer Made Music, and I was hosting shows like throughout the East Coast as a rapper, you know, and we built like very small, but I'm very big into, I believe that whatever the streets say will like dictate everything. So I would go outside in the streets of Boston and I'd go up to every single person and be like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm like, do you enjoy hip hop? I'm like, you don't? I'm like, let me rap for you right now. I'm like, I've got the show coming up. I'm like, I got tickets right here, like, and I would do that. And it got to the point where, we were making a couple thousand off of every show, without having any music released. So and that was kind of like a different approach, but the point is, if you have it like ingrained that you're going to be this artist, you're going to work by any means necessary to get to this point of what your success is, what you decide your success is, you know. Sorry, was that, I hope that answered
Oh,
something.
absolutely. So to kind of put you know a button on preparation, like you all three represent kind of a similar but different space in our industry. What's maybe like a top three from each of your perspective of like things that absolutely need to happen for you to be prepared to come talk to you, I guess?
I think, at least for myself, it's like that. As I mentioned, that question can kind of expand to, it's like, is there already like label representation? But I feel like for the benefit of this conversation, I'd want to only speak on like independent artists and kind of just starting out. And if you're an independent artist and you are just starting out or you've had music out, like what is the first thing I would want to have ready to help yourself is probably I'd want to have a conversation of like your story where it's like, like convince me, like let's say you want other people to listen to your music. Let's start with me. Like, why should I? Like, what is it about like your music that you find to be like very good, or like what's the story behind it? And I think having kind of like a compelling story is always extremely helpful if you're looking to gain some sort of like press or promotion, just because we can think about interviews and features that way. But at the same time, I think what is something that could really help you and what are some ideas you have and like what's something that helps me is kind of just like plain working, being able to like willing to work in any like capacity as possible. Where, we're seeing right now so many artists is kind of like walking around on TikTok and they just have their song playing in the background. Like, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to kind of just really put it out there and work in, again, in any type of capacity? And I think as long as you're able to do that, then you're going to see a lot more success, because if there's any hesitancy, you will probably not be able to adapt, because music is constantly adapting. And I think that's like the biggest thing as like an independent artist, is being willing to adapt and being willing to consistently kind of just like watch trends and being okay with just kind of putting yourself out there. And I think also being okay with, let's say, you play guitar or you play bass or you play drums, but posting like little clips of yourself playing with like these like little snippets. And I think you kind of just get others interested. Like before I started working at the label I work at, like I used to just like post like random clips of myself like finger picking like guitar, like playing parts of like Nick Drake, and it ended up getting me into like going to like NAMM, which is a big music like convention conference center here in LA. And it kind of was able to unlock me to go talk to like different like guitar reps and guitar brands. And just because I posted like videos of me playing Nick Drake songs, and suddenly I got like, here's a coupon to buy a new guitar for this amount of money. And it was like, oh, just because I posted that. So I think as long as you're willing to do anything, that should be your probably the first step of number one I'm looking for. Because if you can't do that, then we're going to have a hard time trying to get your music out there in general. If you have like a sort of weird vision and like want to be different, but you can be different, but still got to play the game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think a big thing, maybe one of my things would be just, seeing mm, kind of building off that too, but somebody that is confident within themselves. Because if you're gonna reach out to me, or I think anybody, you should be able to tell yourself. If you can't explain like that passion, that drive, and like kind of what you're like trying and wanting to do, then it doesn't make me, you have to find a way to hook me in to want to then help you. I if that makes sense. I'm trying to think if that does.
Yeah.
Yeah, just if I can't see or tell that you believe in what you're saying, then why would I believe in it, along with many other people? So I think just having that confidence, and then agreeing as well, like being able to put yourself out there and push yourself to the absolute farthest that you can go. Because if you're not willing to do that, then why would I do it? Why would anybody take the time to listen? Why would anything? So yeah.
Jonathan, anything you want to add?
No, Tamara and Bobby, that was like right on point. You know, to say like if you're reaching out to me or anything, like um I'll work with anyone. It doesn't matter the level, I'll talk to you. The only thing I will not do is like, don't waste time. I think that's the most important thing, Um, because again, like I'm with artists that are deciding today, like they're going to be an artist, that have never had any music background. And tomorrow, the goal is for them to be on Billboard, because that's like the type of dedication and drive. But there's also artists that are deciding to be today, and then like tomorrow they want to be a chef, and it's like, okay, we'll have that what's up conversation, but like maybe I'm gonna stop at your restaurant instead. You know. Um, I think, just like tying in with everybody is just, believe in yourself and be undeniable. There shouldn't be anybody, and whatever anybody says about you as an artist shouldn't affect anything that you're actually doing. You should like have the extreme confidence that you're going to be able to reach your goals. So I think that's the most important. So yeah, if you want to work with like myself, just hit them up and like, let your work speak for it.
So it sounds like a mixture of confidence, work ethic, and marketability is kind of the three, pillars of being prepared as an artist to kind of step into the publicity realm. Okay, so we have kind of discussed before the release. We're kind of being prepared to release. Now, what can we do to plan the release? Bobby, maybe you want to start. What are some kind of, obviously the worst feeling ever is when you spend a year of your life working on a piece of art and then you put it out and four people know about it, and you feel like maybe you've wasted your time, or maybe you didn't do things right. What should we be doing to have a better plan for our release?
I think I think the biggest one, and this can be applied to a lot of things, I think as you just said, you spend so much time creating this music, recording it, mixing, mastering, getting every little detail right. But I think within that, you have to remember that you need to have patience within the situation, patience within all of it. Because if you're expecting that instant payoff, the instant gratitude of the release and everything, no matter what it is, I think you'll always be kind of let down if your expectations are overly high. Now, I'm not saying don't have them, but keep them realistic and, expect that it will take time to get where you eventually want to go. I think that'll help an artist more than any other kind of plan. Because, there's plenty of people that release music and then doesn't exactly do what they want. And then 5, 6 years later, it's now, as we've seen on TikTok, that these people get a new spark or an older song comes back that's already been a hit or anything like that. Just new people are becoming discovered every day for songs that they released years and years ago. So it can happen at any point nowadays, but I think just manage those expectations when you go into it. And then I think another thing too is, don't just already be done with the song after the release. I feel like too many times, especially Jonathan, you can probably back me up in this, but I think in the rap music world, people just music, just dropping song after song after song, which at one point was good, but I think now it just doesn't have the same effect, and people just instead of focusing in one area for more time, they just spread it out too much to where then like the focus is gone. I think I remember seeing something before where it said, if you're trying to push a new single, like you realistically you should end up, and might be wrong in my paraphrasing, but like you should push a single or a song for at least like a couple of years or so. If you're only pushing it for like 3 months and then that's it, you're definitely not going to see any type of results. So I don't know if that helps answer it, but or if I'm even saying it properly. But
No, I mean that
yeah.
that was kind of my number one. I've been kind of jotting some notes down in preparation for this, and my number one question I had for all three of you was like, what how much time should you spend working a record before you kind of move on to the next thing? And we can get to that as you kind of answer the previous question. But that's certainly like kind of my number one, especially kind of in indie world. You kind of feel like you're kind of stuck between like, I love this thing, I'm so proud of this thing, but also nobody seemed to gravitate towards it the way I thought they would. So now I feel like I need to go move on to the next thing, and maybe lose sight of this other project. But um, Tamara or Jonathan, anything about planning the release that maybe Bobby didn't already handle?
No, I feel like we all covered it. It kind of really just comes down to, it's what your intentions are at the end of the day. Where is this a release just to get it out of the way so you can move on to the next project? Or is this something that, yeah, like you truly kind of want this to be your introduction or kind of like your follow-up or just a part of the story? It really depends on what your intentions are with the release. And I think once you have that intention set, then you're able to move forward and figure out like what direction you want to go with and experiment along the way, especially if you're an independent artist, because if you are starting out, you should be experimenting every single avenue that you can possibly take to see not only what works, but what works for you in a comfortable capacity.
And then I guess maybe you have a special insight to, working with a label. Are there any kind of metrics, maybe like quantifiable metrics that are being looked for? Like after 60 days, you should have, I know it's a lot of impression based stats and things like that, but can you as a rep with a label have a understanding of like, okay, we're 6 months after release, this is going nowhere, or we're 6 months after the release, and maybe, kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So that's a good question because at least at the label I work at, like we have a pretty large staff and there's a lot of teams that handle different departments. So if we're looking at like a 6 months post-release, it kind of comes down to what was our original goal? Was it to get like 600 plus streams? Was that like a breakdown goal we wanted to do? Did we want to get an additional 100 followers on Spotify? Not, oh yeah, Spotify, TikTok, or Instagram? Then great, we achieved that. Did we want to get some views on certain videos that we had promoting the single through like Instagram Reels? Like there's all these different reels you can now do. I'm forgetting one of them, but it's trial reels. Like, do we want to use trial reels to try to go on and try to gain more traction? And if you use a trial reel, it doesn't go to your profile, but it kind of goes out into the world. There's all these different ways that you can kind of look to see like how far you've like grown since it's like a 6 month release. But I think it's like you see that. And let's say if I were to release a single, not this month because no one should be releasing any new music.
Nothing.
If
Nothing.
you're trying to build something right now, please don't do it. It is the holiday season and end of the year. No tip for everyone. But let's say I want to release a new single next year. Right now it's December 8th. When am I targeting? I would probably target February 6th. That way I would have the holidays to decompress. I would have all of January to spend my time thinking about like what do I want to do. Then on release, I would try to get all this done. And what would that mean if I'm an independent artist? It would mean I would have my cover art all done. I would maybe decide, okay, well, I'd love to get like a single review, and that'd be super cool. And I would look at different local blogs. And I would want to have at least, let's say I just started my Instagram and my TikTok, I would try to be posting something on TikTok 3 days a week. And I know it seems a lot, but that is what you have to do. You got to post 3 days a week. It can range in a variety of content from photos to, let's piggyback to what Jonathan said earlier. Let's say you can't decide if you want to be a cook or a musician. You can say, this song makes me want to cook this. Boom, there is your new TikTok series right there. And then now it's March 6th. It's been 1 month post-release. How many new followers do I have since? And what was my original goal? And that's kind of how I would do it.
And then one last question to jump off of what you just said. Is there too much? Is there too much TikToking? Is there, you're posting,
No.
there's no number, no too much.
If you are not Kevin Parker and Tame Impala, or if you are not like anyone of that level, that status, I think you can go as crazy as you want because this is the time to experiment and like really, if your goal is to get your music out and truly go for it, then go for it. Like you have no reason to not go for it. And if it's like, no, it's embarrassing and if you're afraid of being embarrassed, then you might not be ready because I think as you get your music out there further, you kind of have to accept that there's going to be photos taken of you that you're not going to like and you won't approve of, but they will be out there in the wild. So you just got to just go for it and just really do anything you can to get your music out there. And if something works, then keep doing that one thing that works. And if something isn't working, you can try it again. But if it's not, move on to a different idea.
Great advice. Jonathan, anything about planning the release?
Yeah, mood board. One of us said it earlier. Mood board, like you should be planning your release during the whole creation process, and that's kind of just like same thing. Tamara just said is like have your goal set in mind, and you should definitely understand like okay, like are you in the studio just making some songs to like release every Friday, or what's the point of your artist? What's the point of being like the rapper, the singer, the R&B person, whoever you are, maybe the DJ. But like, find your point and like as soon as you get that nailed down, you're like, okay, figure out your release strategy or like figure out how long it takes you to make the music. You know, that's kind of like the most important thing because we can't like move without the music. You know, it's like opening a pizza business without any pizzas. And then after you find that out, be like, okay, it takes me like 1 month to make one song. Okay, maybe every 2 months I'm gonna release the song. Like so 1 month making a song, 1 month promoting that song, like for the release on the third month. I'm a really big fan of like there's like a 6 week method. Like if you have the if you have like the capability of like generating the music, it's like releasing every 6 weeks. So and you can decide like how to place it. So it'd be like 2 weeks of promotion, 2 weeks you release the song, you promote, those 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after. And then after that, you're already on to the next song. And it's kind of like a waterfall effect, but you're still in the background promoting like the first song you released. But every 6 weeks you have this cycle of like releasing a track. And if you have the capability of doing that, you can see some really good numbers, but that's just like consistency with everything, you know. Um, and yeah, you just have to always be planning. I think that's the key. Is like you're just always planning for like the next steps and just like having everything accounted for, which is like tough in the beginning, but like you'll find the rhythm and be like, okay, like you have to have a checklist of like I always need a cover art, I always need like the track list or like I need the mixes and masters and maybe and that's like that all of a sudden I'm thinking I'm like, oh, I need a budget, like as an independent artist, I'm like I can't just be like throwing money at this thing that I don't have because like even some we were talking about it like the instant gratification of the release. I've had like some extremely like big people that were just like, all right, we're in the studio. Hey, I'm gonna release a song tomorrow. Like, so how fast am I gonna make like $100,000? And I'm just like, well, I'm like, this is your first song that you made right now. I'm like, okay, well, there's like a little bit of things we need to like learn, you know. But if we make the goal like, okay, for each song, my goal is to be like 50,000 streams because that like equivalates to like $200 or like $300 off of this song. That means like my my business is going, and 50,000 streams is like an attainable goal for like independence. So like having these realistic metrics that we're gonna set throughout like our release strategy, like throughout the year, is gonna be a really big benefit to us later on because the starting small will just keep growing and accumulating to more.
Yeah, I know for me, at least when working with younger artists, it's always this kind of impatience, not always, but a lot of times of like, why am I not Drake yet? And it's like, well, I don't, Drake's been doing this for 20 years, like it's not just a turnkey situation. So kind of, so we're planning the release. We are, you know, getting our music or our art out in front of people, the people that we're trying to reach. I know we kind of talked about this. Tamara, you brought up building your local scene, and I think that's definitely a really important thing to touch on in this group because I'm assuming most of us are from Columbus. We have a really tight knit scene here, but I think an open scene, growing scene, obviously. So what are things that we can do for audience building? Obviously, getting out in front of our local scene is one thing, but like, yeah, we got added to this show, but but then what? How do we build our audience? Gradually, slowly, into then something hopefully where 50,000 plays is a thing of the past, and we're at 50 million.
Uh, can I jump in on this?
Please, please.
Uh, you can't, yeah, you just can't be like embarrassed, I think it was earlier. Um, when we're starting out, you have to say hello to everybody. I think introduce like, you just got put on this board. I remember like even if every usually any show I attend, I'm like talking to every single person in that building, from the owner of the venue to like the fans, just because, I'm I'm who I am, but my goals are like I hope that we like cross paths in the future for something greater. And just like that should be the mentality of all these artists is like, okay, I want to convert this person to a fan. Well, if they don't even know you, like they're not here for you. If you didn't bring them to this concert like or this show, they're not here for you. You have to like work to get them there for you the next time. So like, start like introducing yourself to every single person, and start like trying to create your own community events, with yourself as a group or like individual. Find out what your like niche is, maybe a backyard show or like like, and I'm in Cincinnati and I got some artists that are like, hey, come have drinks with me on like Wednesdays before the game, like, and I'll buy your first round. And that's like, the beer culture is huge over here, and some people really into that. So it's like finding out like how can you insert yourself in the community? And a big thing what I was doing like during Boston and just like on the East Coast, I was like walking into every single like business, like downtown. And I'd introduce myself. I'm like, "Hi, I'm Jonathan. I go by Dreamer. I'm the owner of Dealer Made Music. We have like these events, and I showcase like artists. So like just getting to really know the community, I believe, is gonna put you like exponentially farther. And you don't know who knows who, because all of a sudden one day I got like a call to do a show for like an MLB team, paying like thousands of dollars for my like rap performance. You know what I mean? And that's just because somebody's like, hey, I know somebody who like needs, So it's like really just work the people, enjoy like the community, really be part of the community. And
Work with people. I like that. Bobby, I know you kind of host some events up in Cleveland and are making quite a name for yourself. What do you got for audience building as somebody that has built an audience?
I would say the biggest thing, and I think we could all agree, especially nowadays too, is people look for authenticity, whether it's the audience that you're trying to build, people you already know, maintaining the audience that you do have if you already have one, and then just inviting new people. I know for the events that I've been throwing, which I was talking about before we started, but last year started a party here in Cleveland based around Sundays once a month, mainly in the summer. So it would happen once a month. I think the times were maybe like 6 p.m. until 11 p.m., maybe 7 p.m., just to catch that sunset. And we were on a rooftop in Cleveland, down in the flats. But so basically, the whole idea was just to create a good, safe environment, a place for people to wind down after a long weekend or anything like that, and just listen to like house music or anything within that nature, and just kind of vibe out. And we've slowly created a good community of like-minded other people who now consistently come to a lot of these events and everything that we throw, and they're completely free. Um, the and now for this year, we've kind of now we're doing 2 month, one in a consistent location, and then another one that are pop-ups. So with the one at the consistent location, I think to build off of everybody's points here of the community aspect, get in touch with your local scene. With the residency one at the singular venue, we always rotate the lineup. So the idea is to showcase different DJs or producers within the Cleveland area who either I'm seeking them out or I'll ask other people, hey, do you have a recommendation of somebody you think is cool that you enjoy their sets, you enjoy this from them? So, again, talk to the people around you, get the recommendations from those people, and then we just throw them in, and see, let them do their thing, let their creativity and um skill speak for themselves. The only real guidelines for it is like, here's the ideal type of music or the direction that we're going for. If you could stay within that, cool, like do your thing. So, but I think a lot of times people walk away from those events and, they, uh, going back to it, they get that authenticity from it. They feel a connection within it, and then it grows each time to where, and we try to do it consistently good every single time that we throw one too, to where then it's like, okay, yeah, like, I can go and this won't be like a dud. I know it's something different every time. It's something, and the fact too, for the pop-up ones, it changes locations. So then even with that, again, another idea of it is still building that community aspect of it. We're reaching out to local businesses, we're showcasing them, we're bringing them more business, everything like that. So then it just, we're helping them grow, they're helping us grow. People that continue to come are helping it grow. And yeah, I don't know if that answers it. That felt like one massive, like huge ramble session.
No, no. I mean, you're there's I think there's a lot of different ways. I mean, we talk about like obviously like building a virtual audience and TikToking 3 times a week, but I think some people forget about like your neighborhood and the chef or the pizza restaurant owner that is also looking to find new art or to find somebody close by. Tamara, you have anything to add to audience building?
I mean, definitely. Like when I was in my 20s, the biggest way I like connected and like tried to build an audience with the band I was playing with was just by going to local shows and being excited about seeing local music and then kind of just putting myself out there and going to chat with like whoever I saw and then being like, I play guitar in this band. Like we played here, but I'm a huge fan and I would love to set something up. Like, would you guys be down if I booked this show? I set it up. Here's the date. All you have to do is say yes. And just kind of do things like that. And I used to do that all the time when I was in my 20s. And just yeah, just go out and just like check out all the different like local venues and see like who's playing, what's around, and then I would bring like a friend with me or just go by myself and just truly be willing to like put myself out there because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And like by doing that, like almost 10 years ago, I'm now playing like one of the bands, just because I was like a fan and I just like ended up like talking to them being like we should play a show together, types of network like that. And then because then through that, you then add to your virtual audience and then you can keep connecting online that way. But definitely just going out and being willing to be social and kind of have that extrovert factor on is really great. And that doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert. It truly just comes down to, challenging yourself and being like, I'm gonna go to this show at this venue. And I'm gonna talk to two people and obviously, I would say don't immediately be like, I play music. Start a conversation first and then let it happen organically because there's so much more that you can get out of this other than like a networking connection. You could also get like a friend, perhaps, and which could only help you in the future.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we're in our like CEO mode, we forget about like just wanting friends and fellow Laker fans in our orbit,
I mean, when you got Austin Reeves on your team, he talk about a team player. You want to assist to everyone.
We can't do this right now, Tamara, or we're gonna have 25 people who are here to talk about publicity upset because we're gushing over Austin Reeves. Okay, so audience building. We are gonna open up some questions from the group, from the audience here. So if I've only seen a couple in the chat, feel free to throw some in there. We will have time to take those. But I do kind of want to give you all a chance to uh, flex your muscles a little bit. Tell us, maybe a success story or two, maybe a like lesson learned moments, and then kind of any pitfall, common mistakes that maybe you see from artists that they can avoid. Obviously, other than all of the things that we've already talked about. Don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Jonathan, you want to tell us what's like what would be like the feather in your cap? We know you got the Grammy. We know that you've kind of started this label and this brand. But what are you most proud of?
Uh, what I'm most proud of, that we're just, like myself and my company and my conglomerates, like we're just getting started. I think that's the biggest thing, like most proud of. Like I'm just like you know, I'm grateful to be able to be a part of this industry. Like I started when I was like 16, and I was like renting out studio time when and saving my money. Then I'd tell my parents, but hey, drop me off at the studio, and like I just always just had a bigger mentality. But just grateful to be part of the industry and work on with incredible artists every day and like of every level. Yeah, starting out or like even Grammy winners and such. But I guess like a success story is man to I'm working. I was like before like the Grammys or the plaques and anything. Just when I started out as a business in New York, I won't even tell you like the hardships of like working 4 jobs and like school and like all of that stuff. But like I was working like 100-hour weeks, and that was like I remember my first session was like 18 hours, and the second day was 16, and then 17, and like I remember telling like getting the interview with the studio owner, I was like, hey, like I just want to let you know you can fire the rest of your staff because I'm the only one you need to like call now, and he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, and he's like, okay, and that's how I started like building myself and my company within a community that I wasn't part of. It's, having, but I was practicing obviously for like 5, 6 years before, sharpening my like knives, sharpening my skills up to have that confidence to go into any situation and be like, okay, who's the best that you have? I'm like, I'm either trying to go toe to toe with them or like, learn from them, but I'm here to benefit you. So, I think no matter what level you're at is consistently like having the mentality of like, okay, I can still improve, you know, I can still like there's so many people that are like here to do work with me and like, that I can still learn from, uh, and just like keeping the mentality of like, oh, everything is new, everything like every second there's so much new information being created that just like impacts our industry and just staying on top of all of that and, having some cool friends, some Laker friends, some Cavs friends.
Bobby doesn't care. He already told us.
I don't care about sports. Let's be specific. That is a very
Sorry, I meant to say about sports.
Some DJ
man.
friends.
Had to throw
I
me
mean,
under the bus with that.
I know. That was not cool of me. I'm sorry, Bobby. Bobby is not a sports fan because he is so busy taking over Cleveland's music scene that he doesn't have time for sports. Um, I keep you guys keep it's sounds like confidence is like continues to be the kind of through line through all of this. Bobby, what about you, man? You've done a lot, obviously professionally. Your resume is great. What's your biggest success story? What are you most proud of?
It's very hard to quantify because there's been a lot over the last 12, 13 years that I've been doing this. So I mean, a lot of ups and downs within it all. Um, I think the big the biggest success I think is just the fact that I'm still able to do it year after year. All the moments that have led up to the 13 years of it have, I think that's been the biggest success that it continues to happen and continues to grow year over year. I know that's kind of like a cop out, but I think it's true. And I think it also speaks to the point that I said earlier, but I think the overall thing, and then even uh, going into like the confidence aspect, but just, being patient, it's going to take some time. The quicker it happens, the easier it is for it to all go away. So I think the longer journey of it can teach you a lot. It can make you appreciate it more, and you'll work even harder to keep it where it's at uh, within all that. If that answers the success aspect.
No, absolutely. I think, you kind of to take it back to audience building, what you're saying is, I think something I notice with artists a lot of like, you see the artist that blows up overnight with one song and you see where they end up 6 months later. Whereas the artists that maybe had the time and had the fan base and maybe did work the smaller clubs and work the circuits, they now have a safety net of 10 people or 1,000 people or 100,000 people that love them and care about their art. And I think that that's something that we a lot of times lose sight of this like speed to get there. Whereas sometimes, yeah, you got there, but you didn't have the the ability to hang on, Tamara.
Yeah.
Actually, what any quick common mistake, Bobby, that you see like that maybe is like a common theme other than not being confident, um, that maybe it plagues artists?
Yeah, I think kind of same thing I said earlier. It's just a lot of people aren't prepared and ready with some of the most basic info and stuff like that. I think some people might not see it as like important now, but venues and different people ask for it a lot is just having an EPK ready or having all your information in one concise area, whether it's a website, whether it's a Dropbox link. Like for instance, along with DJing, I also do the booking for country music venue here in Cleveland, along with in St. Pete, Florida. When I talk to bands all the time, they'll just send me a whole paragraphs and paragraphs of information in their bio. And then at the end of it, I'm really just looking for, and we're mainly looking for cover bands and stuff like that, just because it's a Nashville type style venue to where they just want like high energy and all those hits. But I always end up asking a lot of these bands like, hey, can you send me previous set lists, and then can you also send me videos of you playing live? But I want them uncut, the original audio, everything like that. And most of these people either are like, yeah, give me some time to gather it together, or like all I have is like these highlight reels, and they just send a bunch of links, and I respond. Usually I'm like, hey, I need this all in one concise thing, or they'll send separate emails. So basically just I only say all that just an example of like have it all in one area and have it ready to go. Because if I have to wait on you to get me stuff, and this can go for anything, if anybody has to wait to get the information from you, they're either going to forget, they're going to lose interest, and you're just wasting their time and your time. And then that also shows you're not prepared. At least that's what it tells them. And then, they could take you not as serious. So if you have it all in line and like ready to go to where, when somebody wants to book me and they ask me for my EPK, I literally have a shortcut in my Apple keyboard on my phone where I type out those words EPK, and then it automatically pastes the link, and I just hit send. Like if you wanted to ask me for it right now, I could send it to you in 1 second. It's done. You have it, and usually every single time, everybody's like, "Wow, I've never had anybody hit me this info that fast," or anything like that. So just small little tidbit of like just always being prepared, I guess.
I mean, it's the
And
number one
yeah,
complaint I have on my side, on the sync side, is like you want your songs placed, but you don't have the songs to send me. Like,
pretty much.
and it's like anything. It's like you said, like if you're applying for a job at Target and they ask for your resume and you say, well, let me run home and grab, like you're done. You've already missed your window because there's six people behind you that also want the job. Um,
Exactly. Or even in that, with like the sync world, I'm sure you're probably looking for different aspects of the song. You're probably looking for a clean version. You're looking for the instrumental. You're looking for different stems of it. And if you don't have any of that ready, then like you're probably just going to move on and be like, all right, never mind. Like, I don't really want to use this that bad.
yeah, that's you'll have to come to one of my sync things and you can hear me complain about that all day.
Please.
Tamara, last but not least, success stories. Besides getting to hang out with the Spice Girls anytime you want, what do you got for us?
Let's see. Like, is this for myself or like
Yeah,
people?
just like what are you kind of like most proud of? I think it's like important for people, especially people with some sort of Ohio tie, to have something you know to look at and say, oh wow, that happened.
Um, I would say for me, I always knew I wanted to be like a musician. Like I always wanted to play in a band, and it was always my goal. But I always wanted to be extremely realistic about like how I saw my life. And I feel like growing up here in LA, I've only watched prices rise everywhere I go. And I also was constantly thinking about my future. So I knew I wanted something to fall back on in case music didn't work out. So I I'm not saying that you don't need a music degree to get a job in music. That, it is a fully a myth in my opinion, as someone that has one, but I did want to make sure I had a job always. And I would say my biggest success would be that I was not only able to get a job, but like in the industry, for the last like 10 years. So it's like would be able to have this job while I'm doing music as well. So when I go on tour, I'm able to still work and still have money coming in a consistent flow. And I would say my biggest success story would be not relying on music to be that for me, but it's also knowing that I could still be a real person and still be able to work and use that work to also like help myself in my like musical career as well, while also getting paid to do both things at the same time. Um, and that's just more of a, I guess, like a lifestyle thing. But yeah, rent's expensive, gas is expensive, and I drive everywhere. So I need to have a job that pays me so that I can like exist here, um, and not constantly feel worn down, which I do all the time still, but it's okay. Like at least I have a job.
Yeah, I think any of us that maybe had a I don't really play music anymore, but I did, and I had a similar, kind of coming into work trying to find a way to just like stay involved. I think something that younger people don't think about as much as, in terms of, maybe preparation and the things that we're talking about is that there are music jobs in the world that maybe aren't being the front man or being the star, um, that can also help you to kind of have a foot in both worlds. So I think it's like especially cool that you can still be. And as I said, Goon, I'm guessing Slowpoke is also amazing, but Goon is
Oh,
incredible.
thanks.
And the fact that you're kind of able to be a person on both sides is pretty awesome. So, um,
Yeah.
okay, before I get to
Yo,
questions,
can I bring up one
yes,
real,
please,
sorry to
John,
interrupt, bro.
please.
Just like the one thing of like that I notice killing like artists all the time, just like at least what I see is laziness is like the biggest like murderer. Just you know, it's always just like, okay, I can be in the studio whenever, I can write the song whenever, I can like practice whenever, you know. Even if the usually it's the people that are extremely consistent, and even if they're not like, let's say, the most talented, they get so much more success, like regardless. Like I've seen like people just get, 100,000 followers, and they're not releasing the best music, but they've created such a fan base, like a community for themselves, and that it's they become undeniable within their community. So I think you know if you're gonna do it, really just like don't be lazy about it. So because that's just the one thing I've noticed always like just ends up killing every single person.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get complacent and, kind of waiting, like, why is it not happening to me instead of making it happen for me, which I think historically in this industry, I think now it's, you kind of do have to be like CEO and artist, which is maybe a little differently than it used to be in this industry. But like also that gives you a little bit more, control over your situation. Whereas I think maybe 30 years ago, it was like, well, is an A&R in your town tonight watching bands play or not? Like it's different now. Um, well, thank you all for like just so much insight. I think it's like such a good group because you kind of all touch on different things, but I also am hearing kind of the same thing from all three of you, which is, be confident, don't be shy, don't be lazy, have the work ethic. Um, and how do you make yourself interesting to people? So that being said, I do. We're going to open it up to some questions I have here in the chat. Forgive me if I say anyone's name wrong, but I'm going to start from the bottom, or should I start from the top? I'll start from the bottom. So our first question comes from Shannon Pond, um, and I'm just going to read the question out loud, and then you guys can answer how you decide. Um, I'm listening with my 19-year-old son who is right out of high school and just getting started. What is the best way to connect with everybody? Are there Music Columbus meetings and or in-person events? I can answer that one. Yes, Music Columbus does so much. I feel like almost like something weekly is going on, whether it's a show, whether it's a Music Monday like this. We have there's a lot happening all the time. Hope, Olivia, Amy, and Tom can probably speak a little bit more on that. I know you can follow, and they do a really good job with social media. But what I don't want to speak for any of you, but what about you three? What's the best way to stay in touch with you guys?
I would say with myself, over email is a great way to connect. So if you're looking to connect with me over email, definitely just hit up Music Columbus. And then social media, I'll happily answer a DM. I do have my social media Instagram notifications off though. That is for a mental health reason. But when I do get to answer it, I will answer it guaranteed. But email's best, but I would try both.
Yeah, I'd say the same, just through social media. Always want to help uh anybody and offer any insight if anybody ever reaches out.
Yeah. Social media, on Instagram at mixed by Jonathan Garcia, or at Dealer Made Music. You could go to dealermademusic.com and check that out. Um, yeah.
Cool. Any way you don't want, no landlines, anything you don't want to.
If you can get a message in a bottle here, I would appreciate that.
Okay. All right. We'll send a SOS out for you, Jonathan. I guess that would be like Ohio River somewhere. We'd have to drop it in. And Amy also did reply, Shannon, with some Music Columbus info. Okay. Max had a question. Let's say you had a budget of $5,000 to promote a single within the alternative and indie niche. I never know, is it niche or niche? I feel weird saying niche, but then niche feels kind of like dumb, I guess, a little bit.
I say niche personally.
I know, but then I say niche and I'm like, oh, I feel so fancy. And so I don't know. I don't know what the right one is. So I'm going to stick with niche. Sorry, let's say you had a budget of $5,000 to promote a single within the alternative and indie niche, and this is a newer artist. What is the most effective way to use those funds?
I'm gonna go ahead and answer this one just because it says indie alternative. If this is one single, I'd want to know why you want to drop $5,000 on one single and if there's more actually behind it. And if I were you, if this is just like your only single you plan on releasing and you are like set on 5,000, or if it's an EP or an LP, I would look into doing like a number of things, starting with, do you want PR? And if you do want PR, I would make sure you can set a budget there. So if your budget right now is 5,000 and you want PR promo, I would probably look for PR. No, I would want my max to be 1,000. I don't think you should be paying over $1,000 for that. And you should be very clear on what your goals would be with that, with whatever publicity company you connect with, because if you do that, you can kind of open up a world, and depending on who you decide to work with. And let's say you want a manager, that is a publicist, if they have connections with like within that atmosphere, can help you meet some managers, or can either easily like send your music to a manager to be like, would you consider this person? With that as well, you can also find the right publicist to help you find an agent. And that just kind of has to do with if the person knows someone, but this would all be kind of part of your setup process with if you do want to do publicity. Because yes, there's promo features and there's a story, as I've talked about earlier, where you would get a bio set up and that would be all in charge of like the promo publicity side. But I would also put in manager, an agent in with that. If that's what you want to do. Additionally, there's other things considered too. Let's say, with everything happening via like social media, something I tell my artists a lot is meta ads. I think a meta ad is a great way to use some of your budget, and that would be putting an ad up on Instagram. And I would look at ads on TikTok. So when you're scrolling, it comes up, and YouTube as well. All sort of metadata ads to just, kind of help get your music out there and really push with that. You can also look at different college radio campaigns, because that's a great way to reach music and have your music be reach within, let's say you're a college student, you're about 21, and you want your music to be kind of sent to like, KUTX Austin, which is like a cool, hip, if you're in the indie alternative world, you probably have heard of KUTX. And you probably want that'd be a good stepping stone along with KXP. So I'd want to see if I can get someone to send it to all those program directors. And what else would I do with that money? I would also, let's say, do you want to film a music video for this single? You could also use that budget towards that as well. But if you want to do all these things, then you should make sure that you're not spending more than $1,000 on any of these things. And it is very possible to get it all done. It's just a lot of research and making sure you work with the right people, but it's super possible. And those are all great ways to essentially start promo for a new single, especially if you're a newer artist. And there's tons of companies out there that are willing to work with so many starting artists that have so many connections. I mean, hell, like you can now like people on my label, you can get signed because you have like over 1 million followers on TikTok, just and you've never performed with like a show ever in your life. Like now can start with metadata ads. There's so many different ways to grow.
I will, just for the sake of time, we have about 12 or so minutes left, 10, let's call it. I'm going to kind of add this question to the previous from Ryan Carver. I'm in the band Cruz Campo, I assume a Columbus band. Would it be a good idea to work with a marketing company to help promote my album that I'm releasing next year? And what would be a good company to work with? And this is for everybody to answer, or whoever wants to hop in.
Hard question to answer because it depends on what your goal is. I think, do you want album reviews or are you trying to hire like a consultant to help you meet people? And if I were starting, I'm in a band, I have an album coming out and I want to play shows and kind of hit that circuit. I would probably just start asking around locals and seeing what the best way to do into looking for an agent would be. And that's kind of like a great place to start. If you're willing to hire a marketing company, then it sounds like to me that you kind of want to take it to the next step. And I think networking and meeting people that can introduce you to the right people is the way to go. Because sometimes you can hire a marketing company, you can get written up, let's say, in Billboard, but then you'll be yesterday's news. So I think just kind of finding people that can help just introduce you to others is the best way to go. And kind of starts with what your goals are and what your intentions are. As for a good marketing company, I cannot suggest any right now because I would need to know what your goals are and kind of like what your motive is.
And then a third question that I think these can kind of all are asking a similar thing comes from Tally, Boyd. As indie artists, would you recommend getting a PR team for a specific project if able, or is it better to save money until there's a bigger audience?
I would get a PR team if you have an album. I think your campaign will always be much more successful if you have an EP or an album because you can kind of plan it out throughout the year. So let's say you have an EP, it's 5 tracks. You could do a PR campaign that'd be 2 singles and an EP. And with that, you can try to accomplish everything I mentioned earlier, which is depending on who you work with, you can maybe find a way to get into college radio, depending on if that person pitches into radio. You can say, I would really love to just meet some more like-minded people that represent X, Y, and Z who I like. Maybe that publicist can help you reach that level. Additionally, you can just kind of talk to the publicist about what you would like. Like, let's say my dream is to be on Stereo Gum. Maybe the publicist has a history where they've helped achieve that with previous clients. If you have an EP or an LP, you are more likely to get much more success than just a one-off single because one-off single is cool, but most like publications and most people are looking for a completed release, at least in the indie rock alternative world, which I would say I'm pretty knowledgeable in.
Well, if you really want to get on Stereo Gum, you just gotta track down Chris DeVille at one of these Columbus shows.
You.
Okay. I think I have 3 more. I think we can get to all 3 of them. This one is from Mike Nicosaurus Seymour. Mike says, I'm an independent artist and I usually just drop songs as I finish them. What would be the benefit of building towards an EP or an album instead of keeping them as singles?
I think it depends on your community building back at it. It's just like, the goal of your album and the goal of the EP. How long are you planning on promoting it afterwards or before? Are you gonna make it like a moment for your fans? Is this like to get you to like the next level? Are you stuck at a certain level right now? You know, um, so if you're consistently releasing like, like tracks like as you go and you're getting momentum, you know, then you probably shouldn't stop that. That's probably become a thing your fans are expecting by now. But you should start if you're gonna do like an EP or project, you should make it much better than what you usually feed them. Like give them an experience of this certain project. You know, maybe you're feeling like a certain type of way. Maybe the songs are just a little, maybe they're cleaner, maybe they're darker. You know, that's just a certain emotion that you just want these three songs to have, or these 12 songs, or maybe 20. You know, or you could do pull the hip hop move and get all the singles that you've released and put them all in one big mixtape. And and now you push the mixtape and you're running with that. But definitely just understanding like is there a purpose that you have to like do this new thing, you know?
That's great. Thank you, Jonathan. Um, Bobby, I couldn't tell if you were reaching for the mute button or not.
Uh, Slightly. I think part of it too, and I think I never really thought about it before, but hearing it more now is I think with a lot of albums and everything, everybody's creating their own world when they create these albums, and they're creating like a sphere of just what that album means, and you know it gives that audience that you create and that you have something at least maybe a little bit more tangible, another way for them to connect with you even more than they already have. So I think that's more the benefit of uh the whole album or an EP at least, to where you can create more substance for yourself. I think as well, usually with a lot of the singles at times they're not necessarily they're all probably different subject matter, different sounds and everything like that, to where then maybe an album challenges you a bit more to try and create a more cohesive piece of work. Everything that can play into each other, themes within all of it, so it can then push you more creatively, I guess would be another way to think about it.
Okay. It's good information, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, this is the first question, so I think we have to get to it. It's kind of a good one, I think, maybe to end on. This is from Lauren V. Barnett. She said, "What does a beginning content strategy look like for a new release, and what would be a good example outline?" And I do think we only have like a minute or two, so if everybody wants to just something quick.
Yeah, so I'm kind of slightly working on this now. So for one of those parties that we did, that I was talking about earlier, the third pop-up one, we did it on the second tallest building here in Cleveland. We filmed the entire thing and everything like that. We still haven't put it out, but when we initially did it, we got a good amount of buzz on socials, and it helped grow our follower count and everything like that. Instead of just rushing to put that full 2 hour video of it out, we're still sitting on it. So, we're still kind of carrying that momentum. We're still seeing people like the content on Instagram and the other social platforms. And we're just trying to get the video right in terms of certain editing aspects. So now that enough time has passed, I think, we'll then start to gear up for the release of that video. We already have a teaser trailer that's been ready for weeks, if anything, months. So then we can put that out, and then that'll start to regenerate some of the buzz again. Like, oh yeah, this did happen, and then eventually we'll release the full video at that point. So just being able to uh, not rush it out and just kind of slowly build it and craft it to where you want it. I think if that answers that exact question.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I guess
think-
I'll go really fast.
Yeah.
Let's say content. I would just probably start getting ready to post as much as you possibly can. A possible outline for that would be you want to post about 3 to 4 times a week. And I'd probably want to post on my story then about 6 times a week. And what would that look like? That would look like Let's say it could be something as simple as these are the 6 songs I'm listening to today. Boom. That would be content right there. You upload that as a carousel and you tag each local artist. That would be one day. Second day would be here's a 15-second demo of something I'm working on. Boom. Hashtags. Third day, you spend that day just adding people within your community, um, and so on and so forth.
Jonathan, 15 seconds. You got it? Anything you want to add before we wrap this one up?
Check out this artist, Nick D. This DJ group called Me and You, and this new rap group called What Now. They all started out very, very like 100 followers. I've been keeping up with every single one of them. Now they're all surpassed like 100,000s, and they've, I think just like the consistency is what you should stay consistent, build your community, and keep in touch with everyone you possibly want to.
Well, I think that does it for the panel today, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan, Bobby, Tamara. Clap it up for them. Thank you, attendees, for coming. Great Music Monday. 35th might be the best, but 36th might be even better. Who knows? I guess you'll have to come to 36 and judge for yourself. Reminder, the recording will be available on Music Columbus. So if you weren't taking notes, you should have that there on the Music Columbus YouTube page. Sorry. You can follow all the Music Columbus socials. Keep in touch. Like I said, they do a really good job. And if you really want to see kind of Music Columbus in action, Saturday at Verge Fest at A&R Bar. Is it A&R and Basement or just A&R? Just A&R Bar is a
Both.
it's both. Which is in in the Arena District here in Columbus. It is like a mini festival featuring a ton of incredible Columbus bands that have been working with Music Columbus over the past 12 weeks, 16 weeks. It's pretty incredible watching kind of what Music Columbus brings to these local artists, and kind of the reason why we're all here is to go check out these bands because they're all pretty great. So Saturday, A&R Bar, I believe it's free. Yeah, I think it starts at 6:00. Guessing it'll go pretty late. Please stop by if you can. I think it's going to be a great night, and I think it's a great way for anybody who has questions about Music Columbus or kind of what's going on in Columbus to kind of come and get a good snapshot of it.
Great. Well, thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, Joe. You did a great job. Everybody have a great night. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Music Columbus. It was great.